Welcome back to Hoopla. I'm your host, Ethan Jackson, and I hope everyone's having a good day. The NBA season is quickly winding down, and usually this is kind of the time of year where things start to become more clear, and it becomes easier to tell who are the legit contenders, who are pretenders, which teams can actually do something, which teams can't. But for some reason this season, it has become more clouded than ever down this final stretch of this last 15 or 16 games. There's some teams that I thought were showing some promising signs, and all of a sudden they're taking a few steps back. On the flip side, you have some teams that were not really in the mix that are showing and starting to prove me otherwise, that they really can contend. Then there are some teams that have been a complete roller coaster for this entire season, where they look great 1 minute and then the next few games they have some letdowns mixed in. So I have to admit that outside of Denver and Boston, I'm completely lost. Well, I shouldn't say lost, but I'm just completely confused on how to accurately assess any of the other teams in the league. But today I want to give my best shot at attempting to do so for a few teams. So I'll start with discussing the Clippers' recent struggles and whether I think that they're in any real trouble going down the stretch. Then I will give what I think is some much needed attention to the New Orleans Pelicans, who have been on a tear lately and are really rolling. And then lastly, I will attempt to unpack the roller coaster of a season that has been the Milwaukee Bucks season. But before I get started, I have to quickly ask that you scroll down and hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated, and I don't want you to miss any of these future videos. And without further ado, let's get straight to it. So like I said, I want to start with talking about the Clippers' recent struggles for a few minutes after being arguably the best team in the league for a couple months here in this season, when they were playing lights out. It was probably starting in December sometime. They just went on a complete tear through the entire league. But since the All-Star break, they have really struggled. They've hit a rough patch where they are 6-7 since the break. They went from being a guaranteed top 4 seed and potentially being able to move up to the 1 or 2 seed, because there was a time there where the top 4 seeds were within a few games of each other, so it was really anybody's game, and that would have let them have home court advantage throughout the Western Conference playoffs. But now they're on the verge of letting the Pelicans catch up to them and fall into the 5 seed, which would mean that they don't have home court in any of the playoffs, barring an upset in another round. During this span, they are 1-7 versus teams over 500, which is pretty concerning in my opinion. Granted, I have to admit that Kawhi and Paul George and Harden haven't all played throughout this stretch. But speaking of people missing games, this post-All-Star break stretch has made me realize that Russell Westbrook is the most important player on the Clippers. I know that sounds crazy to say when he's on a team with Kawhi, Paul George, and James Harden, but he provides things that none of those three provide. When you have those three players, points, assists, any statistical category, those are not hard to come by. But Westbrook's 11, 5, and 4, because you have those three, is not really it's not really where he's the most valuable. He makes his impact with all his intangibles. He brings an energy and effort to this game that is unmatched in today's NBA. And when a teammate is playing that hard, 9 in and 9 out, it leaves no choice but for others to join him. So, he has become the complete heart and soul of this team, and in my view, he is the most important player on this team. He is also important for them in the sense that he is a player that is not really looking to shoot the ball, not that much. I mean, from the sense that that's not his first thing that he looks to do when he catches the ball. Because, in my opinion, the best teams in the league and the best lineups, they have a player, at least one player that is not really looking to shoot and looks to get their better players the shots while they get on all their points off of the scrap points and back cuts and offensive rebounds and things like that. Think Aaron Gordon on the Nuggets. Think Draymond Green. Any players like that are pass first guys, really team first guys, and shooting isn't their first priority. Obviously, that person does need to be able to be a threat. Obviously, we've seen the Warriors run into problems. Even the Nuggets have ran into some problems where teams just completely disregard that player, and so I'm not saying you need someone who is not a threat at all, but you need someone that does not have a score-first mentality on the floor and to be that kind of glue piece for certain lineups. Because, sometimes you may look at a 5-man lineup and it looks like it's more talented, which it is, but when you have 5 people on the floor that are all looking to score the ball, it leads to long stretches of the games where your best players or your star players can go a long time without even getting any shots up, and that can quickly become an issue and lead to droughts and just them getting out of rhythm, and it causes issues in the late game because they weren't able to get into a rhythm early in the game. So it can create all kinds of issues. So I think Russ is pretty good at finding that balance of not letting the teams get away with completely disregarding him, but he also knows that his main job is to help get Kawhi, help get Paul George, and help get James Harden looks. So hopefully he can get back healthy pretty soon and help them right the ship. But moving on from Russ as an individual, the Clippers really need to get things right, and they need to get it right quick because they do not want to fall to that 5 seed and have to play the Pelicans in the first round, where the Pelicans would have home court advantage. I'm not saying that I still wouldn't like their chances, but I would like their chances a lot more if they were able to play that series while having home court. And that's just going based on, because if I remember from the Pelicans playoff series a couple years ago versus the Suns, that place gets electric, and that crowd is not fun to play in front of. So that's not a place you want to have to play 4 times potentially. So they have 15, I think I looked, they have 15, 16 games left, and it's a fairly easy schedule. Obviously, nothing is easy in the NBA, but they have a chance to rattle off a bunch of wins and secure the 4 seed and potentially even work their way up with Cat being injured in Minnesota. I don't think they can catch Denver or OKC, but they can catch Minnesota. I think they're 2 games back from Minnesota, and obviously they have Cat hurt and they're just kind of treading water right now, so they have the potential to catch them, which can mean that they would match up with the Suns or the Kings right now, potentially, both of which, in my opinion, would be worse matchups than the Pelicans. But that's just the unfortunate situation of the teams that the teams at the top of the West are in right now. 6 through 10. I mean, if you just think about it, in the standing 6 through 10 has Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox, Luka, Kyrie, Steph, Sennett, LeBron, AD. None of which teams would love to play in a playoff series, but in order to make a run this year, that's just something that you're going to have to do. That's just the perks of being in the Western Conference in 2024. So it's just something that teams are just going to have to deal with. But as far as my view of this team's chance to win a championship and the question at hand of are they in trouble, nothing has really changed in that area for me. I still view them like I always have, and I hate to keep repeating this over and over. I feel like I say it every time I talk about the Clippers. But if they are healthy, they can beat anyone in the NBA, and if not, their fate is uncertain, and I don't know what their ceiling is. But moving on, while I'm talking about the Clippers and who they could potentially play in the playoffs and who's jockeying for 4 and 5 right now, I want to talk about the Pelicans for a minute. Again, they are sitting in the 5 spot and are quickly closing in on the Clippers in the 4 seed. They have won 6 of their last 7 games, and they are rolling. However, I do want to preface this by saying that they have not really played any great teams in this stretch. The only good win was against the Clippers, but still they're playing some really good basketball and really finding themselves at the right time. But the biggest thing to me is that Zion seems to be all in. After that game against the Clippers, I seen where Trey Murphy came out and said that he was trying to switch on to Kawhi down the stretch, and Zion basically just told him no, that he was guarding Zion. That this may sound like a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but it signals to me that he's trying to improve different aspects of his game, with defense being a focal point. To me, seeing and hearing things like this makes me really excited for his future. For the first time in my career, it seems like Zion is fully investing in becoming the best version of himself and the player that we all thought he could be coming out of college. As far as how good that is exactly, well, that remains to be seen. But I think he's treading in the right direction, and like I said, it seems like for the first time in his career, he really is just dead set focused on getting his body right. Obviously, the biggest thing is he's staying healthy, but he seems to be getting his body right, trying to improve different aspects of his game. Their team is letting him be more point Zion and letting him operate more on the perimeter and just causing havoc that way. But as far as the team goes, I said going into the season that if they are healthy, especially Zion, that they would be extremely dangerous to anyone in a playoff series. And so far, the health box has been kind of checked off, especially as of late. Also talked about how they have all the pieces they need to be a really good team that can mix and match and match up with anyone in the league. So let's just go through some of these people at guard. Obviously, they're led by C.J. McCollum, who is just, he's just always solid and trustworthy when it comes to playoff time, and he often plays above his means and above what we would expect of him. Then you have the little pest Jose Alvarado that is a crowd favorite, a fan favorite, and sometimes those crowd favorite role players can win you a game in the playoffs. It's going to sound crazy me saying that, but sometimes they can, because they come in and ignite the crowd with some little subtle play that just gets the crowd really involved, and it starts to rattle the other team, and before you know it, you've went on a 15-2 run, which is extremely important in the playoffs, and that one run is all it takes sometimes to win a game. And that run was all started by something as simple as Alvarado sneaking up behind somebody and picking their pocket, or him instigating a technical foul. Just the little things that can get the crowd ignited and cause momentum to flip one way or another. So, and then another guard they have is Trey Murphy. He is a very underrated player on this team, in my opinion, in the league that I really like to watch. He gives them some length, some athleticism, and is a really good three-point shooter, nearly 40%. Actually, I think he's over 40% this year. And speaking of shooting, obviously they still have the rookie Jordan Hawkins from UConn, who can just absolutely shoot the lights out of the ball and can get hot really quick and be a microwave for them. I don't know how much Willie Green will be willing to trust him in a playoff series, but it's just always nice to kind of have that in the back pocket and know that you always have somebody you can throw in that might make 4 or 5 threes. But moving on, the forwards is where they have the most talent and the most versatility. Starting with Zion, obviously he's just a complete matchup nightmare for opposing teams and kind of always has been his whole career. The smaller, faster wings are not big and not strong enough to handle him in the post. The big, strong wings are not fast enough to stay in front of him when he pulls them out to the perimeter. So there's really no one-on-one. There's really no answer for Zion besides sending doubles or building a wall that like they do with Giannis. And at that point, it becomes Zion has to be good at being a playmaker and has to make the right read, and his teammates have to make shots. And if you need someone to make shots, I don't. If you just start listing off people, the Stephs, the KDs, whatever that you want somebody to be a shot maker, there's not that many players that you would name before you get to Brandon Ingram. I have to be honest, I was always kind of skeptical of BI when he was younger, but bringing up that playoff series again against the Suns, when they played the Suns in the playoffs a few years back, he really made me a believer. The way he was able to keep his efficiency up with the high level of physicality that was being thrown his way was pretty impressive, and I hate to say it was pretty KD-like. Some of the shots he was making, the way he was just able to get to his spots and just do what he wanted to on that basketball floor in a playoff environment, that was impressive. And I say that as because I have to put KD-like in parentheses, because I just know that was who he was compared to coming out of college, and that's just always who people compare him to because of the height, the length, the skills, the ball skills, and just the fluidity they play with. They have a lot of similarities. So I'm looking forward to seeing him back in the postseason, hopefully. I mean, you never know what can happen. They may lose 3 or 4 straight games and they're in the play-in, and then lose play-in games and then they're not even in the postseason. But I'm assuming they continue to play pretty good basketball. But outside of Brandon Ingram, then you have Herb Jones, who some would argue is the best wing defender in the league, and I can definitely see where people are coming from on that. He is really good on that end of the floor, and someone could do probably an hour video of just breaking down his defensive ability on film and post a video on YouTube. I'm sure somebody's done it. But then they also have Larry Nance Jr., who just kind of, not saying he is Aaron Gordon, he's nowhere near that level of player, but he just kind of does all the little dirty work and provides some energy to the team that they don't necessarily have at other spots. And he's also somebody else that's capable of getting a highlight dunk that could get the crowd going and boost the team's momentum. And then last but not least, there's Big Valanciunas at the center position, the man in the middle. He is and kind of always has been just a solid post presence. He is a walking double-double. He will not let them get bullied in the paint, and this could be very important if you just think about a potential matchup versus the Nuggets or versus the T-Wolves. He will not allow them to get bullied. He will hold his own against Jokic. Obviously, nobody's stopping Jokic. He'll battle against Towns, get some rebounds against Rudy Gobert. He's just, like I said, he's not going to let them get punked. And against the smaller teams, he will even be able to have his way and cause some matchup problems if he can handle himself. I kind of worry about him in pick and roll coverage, but they can make up for it with some of their own ball defenders and how good they are there. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing from the Pelicans lately, and honestly could not be more excited about them heading into this final stretch of the season. Then, then while we have some teams like the Clippers who are trending in the wrong direction, and teams like the Pelicans who are trending upwards, there's the Bucks who can't seem to decide what way they want to trend. Just going purely based off record. Since the All-Star break, they went on a 6-game winning streak, but then they turned around and lost 3 of their last 5 games, 2 of which were by 35 plus points. So it's not like you went on a tough road stretch and just lost some close games or lost by 10, 15. You lost by 35 points. That does not happen much in the league, so that's kind of worrisome. But if you just look at their overall record, I think it's either first or second best since the All-Star break. They've been playing some pretty dang good basketball. So I don't really know what to make of their inconsistency this year. One minute they look like they are finding it and starting to put the pieces together, and then the next they look just as lost. So obviously they've had a lot of turmoil with coaching changes and injuries and things like that. But the biggest thing for them to me down the final stretch is getting Chris Middleton back and letting him get his legs and get his rhythm heading into the playoffs. I think people forget just how good he is and how important Chris Middleton is to this team. This is the same guy that dropped 40 points in Game 4 of the 2021 Finals against the Suns, and some people were saying he was in the Finals MVP conversation until Giannis went crazy in the rest of the series. He is that good. He's just had some bad luck with injuries recently. When healthy, I would feel comfortable putting their big three of Giannis, Dame, and Middleton up against any other big three in the league, and I would feel comfortable with my chances. But not only does he help him at the top of the roster with taking some of the load off of Giannis and Dame, when he plays, he allows everyone to go back into their normal positions and play their normal roles, which takes some of the pressure off of your role players and can increase the efficiency of the team. So getting Chris Middleton back healthy is extremely important to this team, and it allows them to move up into that tier where they can be anyone in the league, especially Boston in the East. And also, just real quick on Middleton, it kind of gets overlooked in his game, and he's old and injury prone now, but he's not. He will help them on the defensive end too, because they lack some wing depth, and he just gives you some size, and he's veteran. He has some vet savvy that allows him to be pretty solid, and just his IQ of knowing how to rotate and how to be solid on ball is just it'll help them on that end of the floor as well. But as far as the whole team goes, they have shown some pretty significant improvement on the defensive end of the floor, which was, in my opinion, that was their biggest problem. They went from being a defensive centric team to now they're pretty much an offensive centric team, which is fine. Plenty of teams have been successful doing that, but you can't be bottom third in defense and expect to do anything of significance like they were for most of this year. But so if they can move up to the top 10, somewhere around there in that range on defense, I would not want any part of this team if I was Boston in the East or any other team in the Eastern Conference. But like I said, they have shown some really good signs since the All-Star break. And my view of them as threats to Boston has been altered some by their recent play. So hopefully them getting Middleton back will allow them to take another step forward and prove that they can be consistent for an extended period of time, because that is what it will take. It will take to make a real run at this thing. And while I'm talking about players coming back real fast, I just want to quickly, I don't even have this in the notes, it just kind of popped in my head. I want to talk about Steph's return last night. He, outside of the first quarter, he came right back into form after his 3-game absence, and they got a much needed win against the Lakers last night. That was huge for both of those teams, and it could really have a huge impact on their jockeying for who's 9, 10, 8, whatever they're battling for at the end of the season. That was a huge win. He is like I said, he didn't skip a beat, put up 31, I think it was, and was fairly efficient. So the Warriors look like they're gonna finish the season playing some good basketball and try to make a pretty good run at this, win 10 of their last 15, 12 of their last 15, something like that. And then on the other side, you have LeBron went crazy and just really couldn't get no help from anybody else on his team. And then Anthony Davis got hit in the eye or whatever and didn't come back in the rest of the game. So if he misses any period of time, then the Lakers are in some real trouble. I don't think they're really in threat of falling to the 11th seed, even though I think the Rockets have won 7 of their last 8 or something. So they're moving up. I think they have 3 games up. So, I mean, I've seen crazier things happen. In standings, you are a tweaked ankle away from LeBron not playing, having to miss 3 or 4 games or miss 2 weeks, whatever. So they better get their act together before this last 15 games to see if they can move up in the standings, or at worst, they need to stay where they're at. They fall out of the playoffs. I don't know what they're going to do going forward, but it's crazy how finicky things are, especially with the standings and things like that, and how one game here is going to be crazy. Like, I just before sitting down to record this, the Dallas got a huge win against Denver with that left hand game winner by Kyrie Irving. That was nasty. I don't even think obviously he shot it to make it, but I don't even think he really meant to make that. I think he shocked himself when that went in. But it's getting crazy down the stretch. Like I said in the intro, at a times when things are supposed to be becoming more clear and teams are supposed to be kind of coming into form and things like that, it's now it feels like things are more crowded than ever and than they were at the start of the season. Like I said, outside of Boston and Denver, the league is just full of uncertainty, and I believe I could even talk myself into areas of uncertainty with those 2 teams. So I truly have no idea what's going to happen in these last 15 games or so in terms of seeding and how the standings will shake out. But as crazy as it is, that is the modern NBA. There's more talent than ever, more skill than ever, more star players than ever, and it's more spread out than ever. So I cannot wait to see how things are going to play out in the final stretch of this season. So that's gonna do it for everything I wanted to talk about in this episode. Before I wrap up, I just want to announce that I'm working on some new things for the channel to kind of diversify my content and outside of strictly just doing these podcast episodes. One thing, I won't spoil everything, but one thing I'm working on is I'm learning how to set things up on the tech side of things, is where I can do some film breakdowns, especially come playoff time. I haven't fully thought out the format of those videos, but I'm leaning towards kind of doing little 5-10 minute short videos that breaking down some key plays and key strategies that teams are implementing in games, and just kind of doing some where I can draw on the screen and things like that as the game goes along. And like I said, pick out some key plays to do a breakdown of how, whatever it may be, how the so-and-so slowed down Nikola Jokic, whatever the main key points of the game will be. So I'm excited about some of the new things I have coming, and I hope you are too. But with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Hoopla. I've been your host, Ethan Jackson. Until next time.